Hello everybody, how are you all doing? Welcome back to Man City Unplugged, your very own Man City fan channel. Since I've heard this news of even Romeo Lavia leaving, of course, we knew Sam Edozie was leaving a while ago, right? A week, 2 weeks ago. But with Lavia also leaving, it's like I couldn't help thinking now what will be the psychological state of the academy. I don't agree when you say that we have lost. Yes, it is true that we have let us really star youngster who's highly talented go in Romeo Lavia and also in Sam Edozie. But I will not agree with the fact that we will not find another Romeo Lavia or something. The scouts are very efficient, and also Lavia hasn't left permanently, right? I expect him to return to the club down the line. Maybe down the line situations can change. Down the line, you never know, you might find, our scouts might find an other great DM, and by the time Rodri is 31, 32, and by the time Rodri is almost in the same situation as Fernandinho, for example, when he's about to leave the club, you never know if that DM who's our scouts found in the academy is 21, 22. He could just come straight into our team. I think timing plays a very important role. You can say that, oh, it's nothing about luck, it's all about hard work and all, but I do believe, okay, not luck, but I do believe timing plays a really crucial role. You for example saw how Rashford broke into the United team, right? Even ahead of Greenwood, when Greenwood was the top striker then, at United. Three of United strikers were injured that day, and under Van Hal, Rashford got the chance, and then he has never looked back since. So I do guess there are numerous examples in football like that. So I do guess timing was not with Romeo Lavia, because I know that we've discussed this on yesterday's show as well regarding the fact that if Romeo Lavia was somewhere around 21, 22, I do think that he could have come straight into the team. We would have never bought Calvin Phillips. Sam Edozie is an interesting thing for me, because it looks as if City have not even decided to maybe insert a buyback clause into Sam Edozie's contract. I don't know, but there's no news of that. There would be some clause like that, I guess, in a first choice. We have the first choice to buy the player back, or there must be some clause like that, because you don't know how how great a player could become in the future, a young player. But Sam Edozie is interesting for me because last preseason, Sam Edozie he was scoring goals for fun every match. Pep Guardiola started him in every preseason match, which Pep doesn't do if he doesn't think that the player will be around the first team. The player will be slowly brought into the first team. Pep doesn't believe that. He will not put a player in start a player in preseason matches, and Sam Edozie scored goal in each of the preseason matches started. I think Sam Edozie scored a goal in the Community Shield match as well. No, he started the Community Shield match against Leicester last season, and after that, I know it's bad luck due to injuries and all, but what I thought was, at least with, especially with Mahrez aging, especially with Sterling leaving, it's almost decided now that Sterling will leave. Sterling leaving, Mahrez aging. Okay, you've got a Julian Alvarez. He might potentially need time to adapt to the system. There's an opening, right? Palmer and Sam Edozie. I thought it was almost the perfect time for Sam Edozie to come into the team. Basically, people have been telling that we need to buy another winger, like maybe a Serge Gnabry or someone to replace Raheem Sterling. But I think we have someone like that in Sam Edozie, because Sam Edozie is deceptively quick as well. So I really feel that, again, like I was mentioning earlier, it's not about, not finding another kind of a player like that. Like, it's not that these two are generational talents, or something like that. But the thing is, now will the academy players go through? For example, your Tommy Doyle, who has gone on loans, right? He has gone on loans to several German clubs. He has placed the trust in City that okay, I will get my first team chance here. I'm ready to knuckle it up and grind it out here. What impact will it have? Because Romeo Lavia was so close to the first team action. He was so close to starting for City. Last season he started a couple of games in the League Cup as well. Same with Sam Edozie. He couldn't due to injuries and all. Same with Liam Delap as well. That's a step further. I know he's not leaving, but Liam Delap as well. I mean, where will you put Liam Delap now? Liam Delap is beyond the under 23s right now. He's beyond EDS because a guy who scores for fun, Liam Delap is beyond that level of under 23s, and he can't start at City as well now. You see the conundrum here. You could attribute it to bad timing or things like that. There are many things you could say about this, but each of the youth players, it suddenly seems that most of our youth players might think that there is suddenly no pathway into the first team because we are suddenly buying players of the age of 22, 23. Okay, Calvin Phillips is 24 and who can play on for another 5, 6, 7 years. So suddenly as a youth player you're thinking, what is my chance of breaking into this first team? What is my chance of becoming a regular like Phil Foden into this first team? How difficult is it to replicate a Phil Foden? That is the question. I know Pep has promised that there will be a pathway in the team like he did it with Phil Foden, especially for players who Pep thinks are exactly suited to the system. But now that because Romeo Lavia was suited to the system, Pep once said about Romeo Lavia that the way he recognizes spaces, the way he defend spaces is something excellent because as a DM, as a center back, you have to defend large spaces, right? When an opposition team switches, you have to go to both the far ends of the field, you have to really run, you have to put in the yards, you have to read the game well, and Romeo Lavia does all that, and yet do you think it's a matter of trust? Because again, yeah, I said that maybe at 22 after 4 years, Lavia could eventually replace Rodri. But Pep started Eric Garcia. Eric Garcia was what, 18 years, 19 years? So this is another contradiction for me. Pep used to start Eric Garcia back then regularly, even though we had our regular centre backs available. Pep trusted Eric Garcia that much. Pep spoke that Eric Garcia knows how to read the game well, even at that such a young age. But the same is true of Romeo Lavia, right? I think this could be looked upon by our academy players, especially thinking that, well, 2 years ago you have given a kid who is almost of the same age and who almost has the same reading of the game like Romeo Lavia and Eric Garcia, given him chances. And now, why haven't you even taken a chance with Romeo Lavia before letting him leave to Southampton? Maybe you could argue that Pep didn't get a chance to test Romeo Lavia with the Premier League games, Liverpool chasing in, the title race in the Champions League games, all coming through. But I still think Pep should have maybe consider taking him to pre-season. See, again, it's this it's this conundrum actually. I mean, if you trust young players and you go into the season, let us imagine a Rodri is injured. So for 3 months, for example, his hamstring or something happens and I mean, not an hamstring, ACL or something happens. God forbid, nothing like that happens. But Rodri suffers a grievous injury, and Romeo Lavia has to hold the midfield for 2 3 months. Can Romeo Lavia do that? And by bringing in Calvin Phillips, you know that Lavia is virtually not going to get any time. So this is an other conundrum. See, there are both pros and cons. There are questions you can ask Pep Guardiola, but there are bigger questions that Pep Guardiola, I mean, and the club and no one I think can have answers to, especially this injury crisis. What if a senior player is injured? Will an academy player be able to do that job? And that Pep could say that was the reason I bought in Calvin Phillips here because Liverpool chasing in the title race. It's you. I mean, suddenly, if RK leaves, you could suddenly find that you're threadbare. In terms of defense, for example, if you didn't bring in Calvin Phillips, assuming RK left, you would have Stones, Diaz, and Laporte as the senior centre backs, and Rodri as the senior DM, and then Romeo Lavia, Luca, MBT, and our centre backs, for example, suffer more injuries. Generally than most clubs. So, do you trust a young player here, or do you um, or do you think that the season is tough and I need these senior players in my side? That is the biggest conundrum, I think. I know I'm repeating myself, I've said this statement, but I myself am thinking while I'm saying this statement actually, how does Pep deal with this conundrum? Because this conundrum is going to keep repeating over and over again in the future. And our aim actually is to build our own class of 99, by the end of this decade, by 2027, by 2028. So how are we going to do that? Because I mean, last time also we were discussing quite a lot that the challenge is to remain competitive as well as blood young players. So that is going to be a big challenge, and if this thing repeats, we might lose another one or two very good players. We might lose a Kaiki, for example, or an Oscar Bob next season, just by citing the reasons that Liverpool are a tough competitor, Spurs are there, Chelsea is there. So how do you bring these academic graduates through? See, you look at any great player, you look at even a Messi, you look at a Xavi, you look at an Iniesta, you look at a Puyol. I mean, all of them, Pedro, all of them have been given chances, right? Someone has trusted them in their youth and taken them to a big club and given them chances. Guardiola did that when he was at Barcelona. Why is Guardiola a little bit more? The question is, why is Guardiola a little bit more conservative in terms of bringing the youth through at City than he was when he was starting at Barcelona? You might argue that they didn't have a fierce competitor in Liverpool, but back then Valencia was good. There were teams in La Liga back then in 2008, which was it was almost a three, sometimes a four-horse race back then in 2008-9. If you look at it, Malaga was making the semi-finals of the Champions League, so La Liga was quite strong back then, and still Pep trusted his youth, that too in a new job, where if he failed, big managers would have taken that job. He would be sacked in a year or so. But still, Pep did that. At City, with all the security, why is Pep not doing it more elaborately? I think doing it a little bit more. There are things like, for example, if we are really if you're winning the match 3-0, 4-0, sometimes Pep doesn't make subs. He just keeps the team. Now that is not a criticism of Pep, but I do feel it is in those instances that Pep can maybe give these young players a chance. Now again, there's two sides to it. Fans could say that, well, if you want to compete for four trophies, then you need to be ruthless and you need to pretty much play your best players. Play your senior players in all of the competitions. I do go with that argument, but there needs to be some breaking point. There needs to be some clear pathway, because if I'm an academy player, what will I think? I'm puzzled actually now. What is my pathway? Okay, Phil Foden made it through, but Phil Foden's path also wasn't as clear, right? There were rumors that he would go out, but Phil Foden stayed and he had to really work for his place, and all of David Silva left there. There were some favorable things also that happened in his favor as well, along with Foden working damn hard. But as a youth player, I don't see clear pathway. They say the Foden example, but Foden example is not a clear pathway. It could be a unique thing actually, the way Foden broke into that Pep first team, and the way he started important matches. So the confusion here is how do I identify the pathway? How do I have the confidence in the academy? If I'm an under 23 player, how do I have the confidence and trust that I am going to make it someday if I do this X, Y, Z? Because you have a Romeo Lavia, you have a Sam Edozie, especially Romeo Lavia, who was perfectly suited to Pep football. He knew how to defend spaces, like I was saying, and all the qualities that Pep looks for in a DM. Romeo Lavia has. So if I'm an academic graduate, I think I'll be a bit worried actually. Worried in the sense, I mean, I will trust the process, but worried in the sense I'm still not able to see that clear pathway into the team. It's still a little bit more muzzled, it's still a little bit more husky. I'm still in haze. So I think that is what the club should do next. The club should somehow at least send a message, or show the youth team players how they think that the youth team players can actually make a breakthrough into the first team. It's still an issue that is unclarified, and I know it didn't make much of noise in the last few weeks, in the last months, because we won the title. Because if we would have lost the title and the youth are leaving, then it would just be a ruckus in the media, everyone telling that, oh, City is just mismanaging, there's no structure in the club, all of their youth players are also leaving, and all of that. Success covers it up to a large extent, but we must not overlook this, because I personally feel that in the coming decade, the youth players will be the oxygen to this club. That is the next pathway for the club to become very much sustainable, be almost non-dependent on owner funds. We sell players, we buy players, all of those things in the next transfer windows. Only what should we do is we should just play players from the youth team. That's how I wish the club should become, and I think that's the next destination. Listening to the chairman's message a few weeks back and all of that, that is where the city hierarchy think we should go as a club. They trust the academy a lot. They have invested a lot in the academy and all of those things. But I think they should. I think now it's the time with youth, with so much talented crop of youth coming through at once. Luca MBT, Callum Doyle, Sam Edozie, Cole Palmer, James McAtee. There's Oscar Bob, who's potentially coming through. There's Taylor Howard Bellis. I've already named seven, and I'm sure I might have missed three or four more. So I think this is again a unique moment in history, in the history of this football club, with so many youth coming through at one time. I think we have not had this in the previous seasons. In the previous seasons, maybe we had Foden coming through. We have heard one, two names, but now it's suddenly have six, seven, at least two, three youth players in the six, seven list who are really ready to break into this first team. I think everyone is looking for a message from Pep, and this preseason will be very interesting. How much of youth Pep trusts, and it will be a message. I think this preseason actually could be a message on how Pep wants to translate this youth talents and transition them into the first team. So just a little bit worried about how these Lavia and Edozie going could have an impact on the academy. It will not have an impact if Pep can use the preseason, if Pep can use the training sessions after the players come back after the summer break, to emphasize on the importance of you, to illustrate that I want you to do this, this, and this, and you'll get into the first team. I don't care if there's a much more talented player. I think Pep needs to. Send out messages like this to the youth to make them feel confident, and especially it's more necessary than ever when you're a young player. Your confidence is already fragile. You're putting in the hard yards, you're putting in the hard work, and yet you see that not much of a result is coming out in terms of breaking into the first team. That can actually be very discouraging. It could lead to a loss of enthusiasm, disappointment, and all. So I know Pep is a master at handling young players, but I think we could be a little bit more proactive, and we could actually trust a little bit more in terms of bringing these young players through. So let me know in the comments below, what do you feel about this thing about the young players not having a clear sort of a pathway. Yes, there's a Foden way, but there's not a clear sort of pathway to get into the first team. What do you feel about this? Let me know in the comments below. And I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you've enjoyed the show, please click on the like button and also the bell icon in the subscribe button so that you get notifications whenever we come up with new videos and live streams. Until then, take care, guys, and see you all.